And so our final author of the day, who is going to be reading from their book, Cardinal Virtue. Are you ready to go, Jan?
Yes, I am.
All right, go ahead.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is J.R. Lesperance. Thank you for sticking it out to the end if you were here at 10 and now we're here at the end. I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my debut novel, Cardinal Virtue. It is the only novel I have out right now, but I am writing a sequel book to it. My book is available on Amazon. You can get it in ebook or paperback, and soon audiobook. We're working on that right now, and that process should be done hopefully soon. So my book is about her name. It's a female main character. Her name is Lara Nadeau, and she is a kind of police legacy. Her father was a police officer in Boston, and she starts off her policing career in Boston as well. But through a series of events, she is transferred out of Boston to a fictional town called Eastfall. And it's kind of different because it's a little bit more small town policing, a little less kind of craziness of city life, I guess. But there is a murder of a local teacher that occurs that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the book. I do consider this to be kind of like a paranormal police procedural, so it's a bit of a mystery, but also with paranormal elements as well. So the part that I wanted to read to you today is actually not the first chapter, but a little bit further into the book, maybe about almost a third of the way in. It won't give away any spoilers or anything like that, but I just think I like this chapter. So a little bit of background context for you. Laura's already been on the case with the first murder, and she's just kind of frustrated because she's hitting some dead ends and stuff like that. And she has just spent the night, if you know what I mean, with one of the assistant district attorneys in the area. And so she managed to kind of wake up in the middle of the night for some reason, and she steps out in the hallway and she sees that the attic door is kind of propped open, and she doesn't remember it being that way. So just a little bit more background about the house. The house that she's in is an old colonial that has been like refurbished a little bit, but it's kind of been there since the town's establishment. So it's really old. She's renting it from the mayor of the town who owns it. And I think that's about it, what you need to know. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay. So she's just seen that the attic door is open. Heart in her throat, Laura returned to the bedroom, grabbing her cell phone and her Sig Sauer ankle piece she stored in her nightstand. Armed with phone and gun, she paused as she stood at the side of the bed. Oliver lay there, dead to the world, and took that moment to turn over and away from her. A million thoughts ran through Laura's head in the span of seconds. What good was a lawyer to help her, a police officer, if an intruder was in the attic? If she woke him, Oliver would no doubt act all posturing off alpha male and try to push her aside in favor of investigating for himself. No, that wasn't her. That wasn't Lara Nadeau. Let the man sleep. She had everything she needed in her hands anyway. Besides, could be nothing. The attic door probably sat on old hinges that tended to expand and contract, causing the door to open. At least, that's what Laura wanted to believe. With resolve, she turned and crept back into the hallway. iPhone gripped in one hand, flashlight on, Sig Sauer P238 in her other, finger near the trigger, Laura crossed them at the wrists, right over left, and advanced down the hallway. She cringed with every step that creaked beneath her weight, but pushed onward. Oliver's comments from earlier returned. Something about cosmic forces at work and how he didn't believe them. Yeah, she didn't want to either. Laura never considered herself a particularly religious or superstitious person. Her father and grandparents raised her in the Catholic Church, and she dutifully made her way through the childhood sacraments. Now, she attended Mass rarely. In fact, she hadn't been to church since her father's funeral. The beliefs of the Catholic Church, religion in general, did not gel with her. They never had. Laura was a logical person, a concrete thinker who believed in what she experienced and perceived with her five senses. To Laura, there should be no one else in the house besides her and Oliver Bennett. It hadn't been a trick of the light or her imagination, it turned out. The attic door, indeed, stood open. The thing had been solidly shut the last time she happened to glance this direction, which, granted, had been yesterday. Laura had been otherwise occupied when she and Oliver made the journey upstairs earlier. Arms up, gun muzzle pointed right at the dark opening of the door, Laura continued forward, bare feet shuffling mutely against the floor. Wasn't this an inciting incident of every horror movie? Laura couldn't help but ponder. Much to her horror, the door creaked open further, right in front of her, as if inviting her in. Laura couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't think to form words. That simple movement seemed to have caused her heart to stop. She didn't know what she was expecting to see on the other side of that door. Once the shock wore off enough for voluntary movement to return, she stepped closer. Empty air and the darkness of the stairs leading upward was all that met her. Ears tuned up, she listened to every single minute sound the house made. Laura couldn't discern whether the utter silence relieved her or not. Surging forward, Laura quickly snaked her hand inside the doorway and flipped the light switch, illuminating the stairway and the attic space above. The light revealed nothing. Pulling back the safety on her SIG and sucking in a deep breath, Laura hesitantly ascended the stairs. As soon as her line of sight crested over the staircase, she stopped, cautious, tense, and poised. Lifting her arms higher, she pointed her gun into the giant, seemingly empty space, sweeping back and forth. Nothing. The lighting of the attic was frustratingly dim, creating many shadows that didn't sway or undulate to give away the presence of someone. Or something. Just silence. Silence and a lot of stuff. A lot of junk. Quickly and deftly taking the rest of the stairs, she paused at the top, arms still up and achingly tensed, expecting an attack. Nothing. Eyes adjusted to the room. Laura saw antiques everywhere. Oval mirrors, desks, settees, and a chaise lounge. Not to mention trunks and boxes and broken down bed frames. Some of the older items were covered with white sheets, though they looked gray and blackened by thick layers of dust. Keeping the SIG up, finger rested on the side of the muzzle, Laura swept the phone flashlight to illuminate more darkness. Her shoulder ached from holding this position, but Laura willed herself to ignore it. The space spanned the entire length and breadth of the house and was entirely full of what she assumed were Mr. Lothrop's things. Possibly Charlotte's. Laura couldn't imagine why he would leave all this stuff here. Certainly he could afford a climate-controlled storage unit. Not to mention some of this, if sold, could garner a pretty penny. Her feet propelled her deeper into the attic, away from the stairs. There was no discernible organization to the chaos, though rows and aisles had been formed for ease of access. There were interesting items, for sure. Old hat boxes with moth-eaten contents, an IBM computer from the 1980s, in what looked like a Victorian vanity, complete with a ratty stool. Anyone could be hiding amongst the piles. Anyone could jump out at her and take her down. But no one could remain this still and silent, especially when the old wooden floorboards creaked with every step Lara took. As she rounded another grouping of antiques, a clang sounded to her left, yet deeper in the maze of the attic. Startled, Lara jumped, gun flying to point into the darkness from where the noise had come, heart thumping. Though the sound had been muffled, to Lara's ears it seems like a bomb blast. After all of her experience and all the training she had received, it frustrated her to no end there were things that still affected her. She'd once prided herself on being cool and collected in high-stress situations. But no more. As any idiot in a horror movie, Lara stepped toward the noise, and possibly toward impending danger. Lara finally reached the west-facing wall of the attic, the end of the road. Something was off. There was no one in this attic, and no room for an intruder to double back without her seeing or hearing them. A chill snaked down her spine, and the hairs on the back of her neck stood. There was something in this attic, either playing with her or trying to tell her something. She knew she had heard it. This time, she'd consumed far more takeout than alcohol, so she wasn't delusional. Lara recalled the night she had trudged up to bed and saw something move in the dining room. She remembered the clear sound of footsteps that, after investigation, had also yielded nothing. Though she considered herself a logical thinker, Lara couldn't deny what her senses had picked up. Lara reluctantly let her thoughts wander to a possible solution. Growing up, and even now, Lara had been ambivalent about things strange and unusual. Dare she say supernatural? Though human beings had existed for millennia, many things still remained hidden and unexplained. There was always room to doubt, room to be proven wrong. Wasn't that what the scientific process was about? Lara shifted and froze when a piece of flooring made a different sound beneath her. It was hollow. She tapped her toes against the board in question, suspicions further confirmed. Dropping to her knees, Lara carefully set down her cig and scrambled to get her fingertips purchased between the floorboards. It took maneuvering, but she managed to pry it up, phone shoved into her mouth, flashlight illuminating the exposed compartment. There was something inside. Slowly, Lara reached in, careful to not let her hands wander lest she cut herself on rusted nails or rotten pieces of wood. Fingers found purchase on a smooth, cool surface. Grasping at the object, she pulled out a wooden box with brass hinges. In elegant flowing script, there were initials inlaid in mother of pearl atop the lid of the box. A.B. Lara could only guess at the age of the box. It was in good condition, despite, or perhaps because of, hiding beneath the floor. The container was the size of a cigar box, but 3 times the depth. There was no lock. Lara's fingers pressed against the latch, intending to open and reveal the contents. But the shrill ring of her phone startled her. Letting out a yelp, the lieutenant fell back onto her backside, palm clutched to her sternum where her heart threatened to race out of her ribcage. "Nadeau," she gasped in greeting, breathless from the scare. "Hey," came the gruff voice of Tom from the other end. "We've got another one." That's it.
Great job. We got a comment from JT. Most authors can't read their own books so well. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
We got, I love. Thanks for sharing. Great job. Dia asks, when will the next book be complete?
The next book will be complete. I don't know when it'll be complete, but I'm hoping to release it, and therefore it then be complete, I guess, in May of next year. Yeah.
Have any questions? Okay, here we go. I love how much detail you included. Can you talk about your research?
Okay, so um without giving away like a whole lot, I guess. A lot of my research just kind of fell in the realm of early colonial America and especially like what happened in Salem. So I've been kind of reading about the witch trials and stuff like that, which I had mentioned in the chat earlier that what I've been reading lately is grad school materials. And a lot of the grad school materials I've been reading is about like witchcraft confessions in Europe and stuff like that. So um, that's what my research has been. I love JSTOR. If anybody in here knows what JSTOR is, it's a fantastic place to find articles and stuff like that, academic pieces. So yeah, mostly just kind of focusing on the Salem witch trials, if that tells you anything without giving too much away.
Dia comments, really looking forward to the audio. And then we have a question from Catherine. Which part of the publication process is your or least favorite?
I don't know. This time around, my least favorite, well, at least for like book 2, I just finished the first draft and it's off to the editor. I actually really had a hard time writing this one for some reason. I'm not really sure. But for Cardinal Virtue, it was definitely the editing process. It's like when you hire an editor and you send your baby off to the editor, they shred it in a good way and then they give it back to you and they're like, here you go, fix it. And the fixing is the hard part. You would think it wouldn't be, but it is. It definitely is. It's the hardest part, I think.
You have to kill some of your darlings, as they say.
Yep.
Joanne, what's your process for drafting a longer piece?
So for my first book, it started out as a NaNoWriMo book, and at that point in time, this was like 5 or so years ago. At that point in time, I was a pantser, so I had like a loose idea that I had written out on like a piece of paper, but it just kind of became a thing of its own. I just kind of let it just flow, I guess. And as far as the second book, I actually used the Save the Cat method, which I highly recommend. I was actually fortunate enough to see, oh, of course, now I can't remember her name, but the woman who wrote the book for Save the Cat writes a novel. I was fortunate enough to see her do a workshop, take a workshop with her. So that was really helpful. It just kind of helps you set your pacing. And Jessica Brody, yes, thank you. It helps you set your pacing, and it kind of actually did, like, once I had it planned out in the Save the Cat method, it actually flowed a little bit easier than pantsing it. So, in case nobody knows, pantsing it just means that you don't really have like a sure plan. You might have a loose outline, you might have nothing. You're just gonna go for it. You're flying by the seat of your pants.
Tia wants to know if you're doing NaNoWriMo this year.
Oh, Tia. No. Unfortunately, no. For the first time in a really long time, I'm not actually doing Nano this year because of I'm a full-time teacher. So there's the whole virtual teaching thing, and then grad school. So I haven't really sat down to write in the past few weeks, which is bad. But yeah, no, not this year.
Are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave?
I guess just don't give up on your process, even when it feels like, you know, you want to give up because it just seems like too much. Just don't give up on your process. Keep writing, And make sure you have supportive people around you. I have one very supportive person that helped me a lot, and I am going to give her a shout out. And that's Catherine, actually. Catherine K. Murphy. She's the whole reason that I have a book published. So listen to those people that tell you that you should publish your writing. Just listen to them. Just don't ignore them. Just go for it, even though it's the most terrifying thing. And you do have an imposter syndrome. Just don't give up.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.